What's going on, everybody? Just want to let you know our sponsors going forward for our future episodes. We are sponsored by Red Clover Coffee. So if you go to redclovercoffee.com and type in code IWP at checkout, you'll save 10% site-wide. Also, we are sponsored by Performance Supplements. So if you go over to performancesup with 2ps.com and type in code IWP at checkout, you'll save 15% site-wide. And our third sponsor is we are sponsored by Crunch Fitness up here in Northern California. Thank you, guys. All right, everybody, welcome back to part 2 of our episode with Eli over here. We are going to be jumping into talking about a little bit more about Ukraine and just kind of taking it from there with all the news that is happening, day by day. So again, welcome back, Eli. And I know last time we talked about Ukraine, and towards the end of that part 1, it was about how you were talking about how Ukraine, it doesn't make sense for them to attack a superpower. So if we can just kind of go from there.
Excellent. Well, once again, thank you for having me on your program. It's awesome. Really appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
So anyways, I guess we'll just jump right into it. Why it makes no sense for Ukraine to actually attack Russia, which is obviously a superpower. They have nuclear weapons. Versus Ukraine, they literally don't have anything. They just have whatever they were allowed to keep after the Budapest Memorandum, because mind you, they were told to destroy and dismantle all their nuclear weapons, get rid of a lot of their fighter jets, bombers, and so on and so forth. And systematically, Ukraine has been demilitarized from, I would say, around the 2000, from the 2000, early 2000s. Why this happened and who's pushing it was Russia. And the only reason why they were pushing it is because I believe it was 1998 where they tried to annex Crimea before. And the Ukrainian government, the president sent in a special forces team to stop it. And that's exactly what happened. Now, the way that the Russian espionage, this infiltration tactics work is what they do is they'll send in a group of KGB, as I like to call them, KGB or FSB. They'll send these guys in and they'll have them live in a certain area and have them not manipulate people, but take in and get people to do things for them, in the sense that, hey, why don't you vote for this guy? I'll pay you to do this. I'll pay you to do that. Or they'll simply just sit there. They'll do nothing. They'll collect intel, and they'll just figure out a way to press the person in power to make them do whatever they want to do. So a lot of times it's just one way or the other. Now, another thing is they'll just send in their own guy, fund him for fund his campaign, fund him, full out, and get that guy elected. This is obviously nothing new. This is nothing, I'm not telling you anything that's a secret here.
Right.
Our government has done the same thing. The only thing is with the Russian government, they're just a lot more sneakier, in the sense that it's like, oh, what do you mean? What do you mean we're anti-Ukrainian? We're not anti-Ukrainian. We love Ukrainians. We're brothers. Yay, we're brothers. Well, guess what? They did the same thing in Crimea. That's why it was so easy to take over Crimea for them. There was nobody even put up a fight, because Ukraine and Russia were doing joint military drills. All the commanders, all the soldiers, they were quote unquote buddies. They'd hang out together, have drinks together, take each other's families out for dinners and stuff. So you grow to trust them, and you're like, well, why would my brother ever want to attack me, right?
Right.
So basically, they got so much trust. They put their, hey, this would be ridiculous for Russia to attack us, and of course, they didn't even have to, raise a finger in that kind of in a sense to take over Crimea, and that's why it happened so easily, and it was very smart and clever on their behalf, so bravo to them, but anyways, moving forward, 2014 rolled around. They were begging for weapons, and I guess United States is the only one that gave them, javelins, which helped out quite a bit. And as I mentioned earlier, there were soldiers. I know people personally that were sent out to the front line with literally nothing. They're just in the trenches. They dig a trench and sit there, and hopefully nothing hits you. And slowly and surely, they started gathering more weapons. They started gathering, people were buying bulletproof vests that had family that could afford him, or they would ask the villagers to, collect some
Hmm.
money to buy a bulletproof vest for them, or buy even just a regular army military uniform, right? So that's kind of what was how it basically all started to come together, and now moving forward, um, what is it now? 6 years, 7 years,
Yeah, a little
uh,
past that, like 8, 9.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so yeah, like so. Anyways, coming forward, it's like literally everything that they have, and the only reason why they're making so much progress is because of American and Western technology. That's it. Otherwise they probably would have completely failed. Um, and before all this, and even right now, there's, like I mentioned in the first episode, there's a lot of Ukrainian people
Hmm.
that live in Russia. There's a lot of Russians that live in Ukraine. There's a lot of families that have family in one place and the other place, And the crazy part is, obviously, I'm not saying this for everybody, but there are families that are so brainwashed and secluded from the reality of information and what's really out there. Like, we have access to information. We can simply Google something real quick and get that information, and we can, um, figure out what's going on, or at least get a good idea. In
Yeah.
Russia, it's not like that. They literally have all of their internet is basically, it's all filtered. All of their TVs all filtered. Whatever they're told on TV, that's exactly what's happening. I have an aunt who lives in Ukraine, and she was talking to her sister that lives in Russia. And one day, her sister calls her, and she's like, "Hey, I heard that you guys are eating children over there."
Oh my
And she's like,
gosh.
"What are you talking about?" She's like, She works in a what's it called? One of those preschool schools.
Hmm.
What's the right word? What's the word for it? Like a daycare kind of deal. But anyway,
Okay.
she's like, where I work, like I work with children. Like, I'll turn on my phone I'll turn on my, what's it called? I'll FaceTime
Like
you right
fit.
now. You
Yeah.
can see, like, everything is fine. She's like, "Oh, we're being told that you guys are eating children." She's like, "How are you crazy? Like, you've known me all my life."
How
But
blatant is
the
that?
yeah, it's just mind blowing because she's known her all her life. She comes and visits there all the time. But when 2014 happened, the Russian government, they've already had like all of this BS
Preset.
prepared years ahead of time. They would feed it slowly into the news cycle like 5, 6 years ahead of time to start making all these Russians think that, yeah, truly, Ukrainians are eating their children because they have nothing to eat. It's just mind blowing. Actually, and the most recent craziest propaganda that the Russians were pushing, it was earlier this year in this winter. Actually, they were
Mhm.
saying that Germans are now living together in huge groups to stay warm because they have no gas to stay warm. Like, that's
Yeah, I know.
absurd.
Yeah, I know. I know people in Germany, and I know other people that know people there too. And like within the past month of them being there is so false. That's crazy.
Yeah. So, anyways, so the genius behind this is like they have propaganda like thought out to a T. This, like, you watch RT, Russia Today. I'm sure you heard of the news channel. They
Hmm.
have a lot of great news on there, which, it's like, oh, you know what, they're telling the truth. Yeah, I believe this, but it's very tricky. They put in a little bit of their own BS in there, ever so slightly. You can't even taste it, and then you keep watching it, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, Ukrainians are, killing Russians because they hate them, and it's like, where, how is that possible? Like, all these people in Ukraine have family in Ukraine and live in Ukraine, and they communicate on a daily basis. I have an acquaintance. Whenever I see him, he's always on the phone talking to his family in Ukraine all the time, and he knows what's happening. So people that watch only the news and never talk to anybody that actually lived there or was there or been there, that's what happens. You get so caught up in this news cycle that you really start believing that, hey, these guys are actually a bunch of Nazis. These guys are a bunch of, killers or whatever. When in reality, the Ukrainian people as a whole, they just this is their mentality. They want to go to Turkey, relax for 2 weeks, you know, then go back to Europe, make some money, go home, and live a peaceful, quiet life.
Yeah.
Right now, actually, sorry, before the war, lots of real estate. Everything's super cheap, especially on the west side and the east side. Everything was beautiful. People were building houses. Developers were developing high rises. Everything was fantastic. There was a lot of foreign investment in Ukraine, especially in Kiev. Like, even if you go down there, when I was just down there a couple of weeks ago, they have high rise after high rise. The whole skyline is just covered in cranes, because there's so many people that want to live in a nice place. If nobody wanted to live there, as a matter of fact, a lot of people from Europe, when they retired, they would end up moving to Odessa. They would end up moving to Lviv. They would end up moving to Kiev. Why? Because one, it's peaceful. Two, there's a decent life. It's very beautiful. They're literally living in Europe, just that they got to learn the language. And a lot of Ukrainians can speak English. They all, like, that's one of the things that because they know they want to be more westernized. They want to
Right.
live a peaceful life. They just want the American dream. That's what they want, man. Like,
And I've
there's
seen
no other way
Klitschko
to.
there too. One of the Klitschko brothers, that's like the mayor or governor or something.
Yeah.
I saw one of his posts, and they're coming up with new development for Kiev and all these new buildings and like parks and like roadways and everything. It almost looks futuristic. And some people were kind of skeptical, like, how are you guys doing this in the middle of a war and X, Y, and Z? But, based off the pictures I don't know from firsthand experience or if you do, but I personally don't think Kiev is getting hit every single day, all day, or even anywhere near
No.
it. So
No, they're not.
they're able
Yeah.
to kind of break away and try to progress and make it, like you said, more of a developmental area for people to want to live in and feel safe and go to and whatever else they want.
Well, at the beginning of the war, everything stopped. Everything, all construction, road construction, everything stopped. And then I would say earlier this year, when the war kind of took a bit of a turn for
Mhm.
Ukraine's in Ukraine's for the better of Ukraine,
Mhm.
that's when everything started to turn back on. And last year, I'd say September, October, people just realized, they're like, this is no way to live. We can't just keep hiding. And I have bills to pay. I have to eat. Where am I going to get money? The people that had money left the country. The very wealthy people, they left the country before the war even started. And I know everybody knows this. This is not a secret, but for example, like Air Ukraine, the owner of Air Ukraine, or man, what's the word? I forget the exact name of the airline. Igor Kolomolsky, he owns the airline, but he already started to park all his planes around the world, because obviously it's not good business to lose your entire fleet.
Right.
So I'm more than sure. And the thing is, this guy is from the east side. He owned a couple factories down there. Like, this guy's mega rich, and he's very well connected. He knew what was going to happen. This is actually one of the guys that apparently funded Zelensky's campaigns, and people are saying, "Well, this guy's chirping into his ear," And I mean, there's only so much you can chirp. Like, oh, end the war sooner so I can fly my planes. Like, come on. Well, what
Yeah.
what good is it? You're not a trillionaire. You don't have the ability to fight a nuclear superpower. Where's the logic in that? And all these billionaires, like, people just I just it kind of a little mind blowing. Just use common sense. Why would this billionaire want his own favorite city be completely destroyed, have his businesses shut down, have the risk of his businesses being taken away from him from Russian oligarchs? This guy wants safety. I mean, I'm not defending him. I'm just trying to kind of reason logically,
It's common sense. That's the one thing that people lack too, is nowadays, even with what's going on in another episode tomorrow, but what's going on like with the Maui fires, like, and just in general, people just don't ask questions. So, and that's the thing, is like, people are afraid to speak out or speak up, and it's like, they're like, oh, I just want to do what I'm told or what I hear on the news one time, and I'm not going to ask a question as to why doesn't this make sense. And what you're saying is common sense. Like, why would he want something negative to happen in a business manner when he can just keep on the uphill for something like that? Like, especially business related and being as wealthy as he is. Why? That's how the rich stay rich. They don't want to go backwards.
Oh, of course. Oh, absolutely. It's like you lose everything and start from zero. This is stupid. And not only that, now you run into the risk of losing your power connections
Correct.
because everything is shifting, right?
Yeah.
So this war is not, it's not profitable for Ukraine. That's a fact. They've lost a lot of people. Like even in the construction industry, when I was down there, people are telling me like, yeah, we can't find people to work because everybody's on the front line, you
Yeah.
know?
And
So where's what you think? For some funny reason, it seems like there's some people, I'm not going to say a lot of people, there's some people they think that, yeah, Ukrainians hate Russians and they want to kill all the Russians. Meanwhile, all these Ukrainians are like, man, I want to go home. I want to go to Turkey. I want to go relax. I don't want to be out here. I don't want to die for a stupid war. Nobody wants it.
I remember the
The
video
only
that I sent you. I think I sent you. It was a dude just driving on the side of the road, and he stopped, and he got like bombarded by, I guess, like the Ukrainian
Yeah.
military or the recruiters in that
Yep.
sense, because
Yes, sir.
just because like they need bodies, and over there in Ukraine, like, you know, you're gonna know way more than me and just the average Joe, but I think we're touching base on it, on the fact of like, if they need bodies and you're a male of certain, you know, I don't want to say stature, but like age and
Yeah.
number and whatever they need, like
Absolutely.
they're going to recruit you and yank you out of your car, which is what we saw happen in the video. He just got yanked
Yeah.
out of his car and thrown into a van, and off to the front lines he goes, or I'm assuming so.
Yeah. So basically, what they do is they'll get you in, then they'll put you. You'll become part of. You'll be working for the anti-terrorist organization
Mm-hmm.
or group or whatever you want to call it. And then 3-4 weeks go by, you get your training, and then they throw you out into the front line. But mind you, I hear this all the time. They don't want to be getting new recruits, not because not, and it's not. It's not a. It's a money issue because they got to pay these guys at the end of the
Correct.
day.
Yeah.
Even if the guy dies, they still got to pay out the family. And the Ukrainian people, they like you've seen what they did at Maidan at the Orange Revolution. They just took apart the entire cobblestone and just started stoning which was a bunch of Russian. They're called OMON, anti-riot, the riot. What's it called? The riot group or the team. They just started stoning them. And that's what people don't understand. Like when you live through, even ask people from China, ask people from North Korea, when you live through something like that, where your whole entire life is literally under a microscope and you have no free thought, you can't do anything that you want to do. If you want to go do your art, I don't know what it is, finger paintings for the rest of your life, because that's what your passion is.
Mm.
These guys are like, no, you're going to go work in the coal mine. No, you're going to go do this. And that's the thing. Like actually in the Soviet Union, they even had these teams where they would go find people that are doing nothing and you'd go to jail.
Oh shit.
You'd go to jail, or they'll send you to a work camp. I mean, you know what? If you don't want to work in this country, that's fine. You end up homeless and you just live your life. Nobody touches you. But in the Soviet Union, it was different. They're like, oh, you know what? We're building a road in Siberia. This guy is perfect. And they send you out there, they put a gun to your head, and you're going to be breaking rocks all day, whether you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
At least here you have the freedom of being homeless. Right?
That's crazy. I mean, that's the other lifestyle too that some people just don't understand, and that's to not like go down like a rabbit hole in that sense, but yeah, it's a completely different lifestyle. And there's a show on Netflix. I do not know what it's called, but this guy goes around to like the most, I don't want to say deadliest, but the most like harsh jails in the world. And
Oh, the Russian kid.
he almost looks Hispanic. I'm not, or Brazilian.
Is it? Oh.
He got
'Cause
like,
there's a
go ahead.
there's a Russian guy that does the same thing. He goes to like the most I guess you can say, dangerous places in the world.
Yeah, I
And
kind of.
he actually interviewed a MS-13 gang member.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so I can't remember. I watched it a couple years ago.
Inside the World's Toughest Prisons, I think is what it is. And that
Okay.
guy goes around. I forgot how many seasons there are of it, but himself, he got like he was in prison for I don't know 10 or 12 years or maybe 15 years for a crime he never did. So when he got
Well, sounds
out,
about right.
yeah, I know,
I
right?
got a perfect.
Freaking
Oh, I got a perfect one for you. So there was this taxi driver in Russia.
mm-hmm,
Okay, he was driving. It was wintertime. I heard this story actually this winter.
mm-hmm,
And anyway, so he was driving, and there's this kid on the side of the road, like, college student, and he sees him. He's like, "Oh man, I feel bad for this guy. I used to be in this guy's shoes." So he pulls over and picks this gentleman up, and they're driving down the road, and he's like, where do you need to be dropped off?" Because he's going into the city, right, into the
mm-hmm.
town. And the guy's like, "Oh, do you know where this street is?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, drop me off at those apartments." "Oh, I know where that is. Yeah, perfect, sure." So they're driving, and he's talking. He's like, "Oh, what are you taking in school?" "I'm going for architect, this and that, this and that." So, anyways, he drops the kid off, and the kid's like, "Oh, thank you very much," leaves, and the driver puts his phone onto the passenger seat where this kid was sitting earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so he takes a turn, because if you know how the little apartment complexes are. You have a whole bunch of little roads around the
Yep.
apartments. So you turn left, turn right. Sometimes things slide around. So he takes a turn, and his phone slides between the door and the seat. So he's like, "Oh man, I got to get my phone." So he stops. He didn't go far yet. Opens the driver or the passenger's door and sees a bag of white powder. And obviously, this guy wasn't an idiot. The first thing he did, he's threw it into the garbage, cleaned his car down with what's it called, just with whatever he had,
Mm-hmm.
and goes on his way. All of a sudden, he gets stopped by Russian Secret Service, and they start searching his car. They arrest him, and they're like, "Where is it? Where is it?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You know exactly what we're talking about." He's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." They make a call in front of him, and and he can hear what they're saying. They're like, "What color is the car?" He's like, "This color, green." He's like, "Okay, and what the driver look like, this and that?" And he's describing this guy. And so, anyways, after they couldn't find anything, they look at the guy, and they told him right to his face. He's like, "You're a smart guy. You're very lucky today."
Oh,
Yeah, it was a setup,
I
because
was
they
just
could have.
waiting for it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a setup. And he's like, "Yeah, be careful of the people you pick up, because you don't know what they're going to do." And the thing is, if they were able to arrest this guy, and they found whatever the guy dropped in his vehicle, guess what? He's going to prison for 15, 25 years easily, for no
Easy.
reason,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So, anyways, that's that.
Yeah, it almost because it reminded me just like how the story of your grandpa, how they tried to kill your grandpa with those
Yeah,
pills or whatever,
they
and
gave yeah
set it up,
they,
and
they
they're
gave
waiting
him
for him.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
They're
it's
like, "Oh well, you're gonna take these when you get home. Just take two." Okay.
yeah, it's so um, we're gonna keep these podcasts like 20 to 30 minutes for people. So right here because we're getting close to the
Excellent.
end of it.
Yep.
What is real quick because this just happened yesterday? What
Yep.
is what's your whole take on Prigozhin getting killed in that airplane? Do you think it was an obvious setup? Do you think it was an accident? Because from what I've seen and what I've read, and I don't know, what sources you have as well, but they said it was from the Russian military defense. It was shot down with a Russian missile, and that it was heading to St. Petersburg. And Prigozhin had two planes heading that way. Obviously, he got shot down in the first one, and then the second one found out and diverted and went another route and went back to land. I think they said in Moscow or somewhere else. So, like, what's your whole take on this? If it was an obvious like Putin setup because maybe he knew too much, and that's how you kind of like cut the head of the snake in that sense for the Wagner Group. What's your take on this in a couple minutes?
So there's two. I have two theories on this. So the
Mm-hmm.
first one is obviously I think what everybody came to conclude is they just didn't need him anymore and they're done, and they realized that this war is not getting anywhere. It's just getting it's burdening them financially and publicly, and it's been a humiliation to a nuclear superpower against a bunch of farmers.
Mm-hmm.
So Putin was just tired of him, and so was the Russian military heads. They're just tired of him, and they're like, okay, you know what? It's time to rearrange the chessboard on our behalf here and get rid of this guy because he knows too much, and we don't want him to talk. That is typical Russian standard practice. I've heard a lot from the guys that have been to like Afghanistan, Chechnya, and so on. So basically, say that you're the commander, and I know what you've done, who you've talked to. Well, guess what? I'm a threat to you, so you're going to take me out, and that's a fact. Because you don't know if you can trust me. You don't know if you can who I'm going to go and talk to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a threat to your existence. So you're going to take me out. Exact same thing. Now, my second theory on this, okay, would be, remember that 3 billion that apparently went missing or somehow got double charged or double sent
The
to
6.2,
Ukraine?
yeah, 6.2 billion. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you know what? Another thing is that you have to understand the Russian people are not stupid. Okay. They understand what freedom is. There's many Russians, very fantastic Russian families living in America, in Europe. They understand what freedom is. They love their country, but they are tired of the old Soviet mindset. So these guys that are working for Wanger or Wanker Group, they they realize that they've been screwed over by their own government in the sense that they're fighting these senseless wars. Not everybody's an idiot out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So uh, it could be that the CIA or the Pentagon or whoever who's in charge, they basically said, "Hey, look, guys, we know you have families here. We know that you understand that this war is not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse for you. You want to change the course of your country's history? Here's your chance. You're going to do this and that, and your families are going to be well off. You're going to be well off." And these alphabet groups, these alphabet organizations,
Mm-hmm.
they could have easily say to Mr. Prigozhin, say, "Hey, look, we need the location of these certain targets. We'll get you a new face. We'll fly you down to Cambodia or wherever, Colombia or Mexico, get you a new face, get you a new body, shoot you full of stem cells, get you your hair back,
Yeah.
and you're going to be a brand new guy, and we'll give you, $20 million, American passport. You're protected. You're under our watch. You're going to be good." And could have easily faked his death too. So that's the only two options. I mean, like, one is a crazy scenario. The other one is a little more logical. But you know what? The way this is unfolding, it's like there's gonna be like a 10-part movie to this. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that somebody's gonna get on it. It's wild. It is. It truly is wild.
So,
So
last question before we end it here. Just a simple yes or no, and then in the next episode we'll talk about it, and then talk about Chernobyl. So,
okay,
am I pronouncing that correctly? Is it Chernobyl?
Chernobyl. Yep.
Okay, I don't know if there's like a different way or like a dialect to say that, but simple yes or no. Do you think the Wagner Group is going to retaliate against Putin like they said they would?
Yeah, I think something's gonna cook over. That's for sure.
Okay.
Something is bound to happen.
Okay, so next episode, let's talk about the Wagner Group for these people, because people only know them kind of like this like spooky terrorist group, but they don't know like I guess so much about them or their practices.
They're exactly
or what they
like BlackRock.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. Vanguard, BlackRock.
Vanguard, BlackRock.
Yep.
Oh, BlackRock, or what was it called before? The one They were in Afghanistan for the longest time. Is it BlackRock?
No, I know what you're talking about. It's not BlackRock. So that's the financial area. You're talking about Blackwater. I
Blackwater,
think it's
that's it. I knew it
Blackwater.
was Black something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. No,
Blackwater. Yeah,
yeah. Once you said BlackRock,
yeah,
then my mind went to Vanguard. That's all the financial
yeah,
people. But I know what you mean by Blackwater. Yeah.
yeah. So they're basically Blackwater. Yeah,
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So we'll talk. We'll talk a little bit more about them, and then
yeah.
some about the Chernobyl, because I know I said this before we started recording, but 2 years ago, they were saying that some embers have been lit over there, or starting to um, become lit in the Chernobyl area, and that people are fearing for a future another nuclear explosion in that sense. But this was awesome. I like doing these 20 to 30 minute podcasts. It's very
Yeah, they're perfect. They're
quick.
perfect.
Yeah,
Yep.
quick in and out, man. People pay attention to it. You can see people have engagement, and there's a lot of people. To be honest with you, man, a lot of my friends that are message me that are a lot more engaged in these like 20, 30 minute podcasts, because they're like, oh, when's the next one? And I'm like, it's next week. They're like, okay, cool. So like people are gonna want to tune into this one because everything is becoming more recent, and then of course other future episodes too. So yeah, man, I
Sweet.
appreciate it again, Eli. These are fun, and we'll see like if
Absolutely.
next week, if we want to keep knocking them out every week or so, or whatever's easier for you. So yeah, again, thank you for
Yeah.
coming on for part two, and we will.
Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, man, and then we'll get this edited and get it going. So thank you.
Super. All right. Have a great night.